Hi, Mark. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Adrian. Hi, Dan.
Hi, everybody.
Whew, how was everyone's Thanksgiving? Hi, Dave. Good, good.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're all like up to walking again and moving around.
I'm joining the YMCA. I've been a blob for like 2 years.
Are you really?
Yeah. When everything closed, I never rejoined the MAC, and it's just
Oh, I
like
see.
I just feel like a blob. You know?
I know the feeling. I do. I ran a half marathon this year, and I used to do like 2 a year, and then I have an IT band injury that just kills me. And so I took it up. My sister was running her first, and so I told her I'd run it with her. And training for it was like, you would think I hadn't been a runner for 15 years.
Oh, I know.
Like
I
I
know.
had never
It's,
moved before, you know?
it's unbelievable. I find my shoulders, I'm hunched over my laptop all the time, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see myself going back to work anytime soon. We're going to work remote probably forever, at least me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're still remote at this point,
Yeah.
you know, they've made other plans for your desk.
Yeah. Manufacturing space at Barium.
Right. Yep. Anyway, I guess I left that. Maybe I left it on my printer. Yep. Okay. A lot of paperwork. Here we go. So I was on vacation last week. I was moving my mom from assisted living to her new apartment. And that went well, but it did take all week. So I'm glad we got that done, and I can be refocused on this stuff. Good.
Before the snow.
Yeah. But right. Yeah. Yeah. It was really good timing. I actually, it just kind of happened the way it fell together because I was looking for an apartment for her for months, but it was really hard to find something that would be appropriate for her. And it ended up being that the move time would be Thanksgiving week. And so, I mean, we did have a Thanksgiving, but most of the week was just spent packing and unpacking and U-Hauls and, the whole thing. Me and my in-laws. So, or my brother-in-law, my sister's husband. But we're there now.
So yeah, I forgot there was a meeting here. It was kind of buried in with a cancellation email. So
I know it was held.
I forgot. I did write it down, but I just forgot. I was surprised. I'm glad someone, Dan, that you sent an email today. So
Circulated, right? Because you would have got the email from me at like 4
yeah.
with the famous invitation. Yeah, I had posted the agenda before I went on vacation because we had Thursday and Friday the city was closed. So it had to be posted by Wednesday. So I just posted it the Friday before I went, and then, nothing has changed on it. So I just kept it the way it was. But I didn't even think, oh yeah, by the way. Same
So
agenda, new date.
Is Courtney, is this a continuation of the meeting we had? We got through one section. Or a couple sections, right?
Yeah, we did. We got through a few. Hold on. I'm looking to see if we have a quorum, which we do. We can start the meeting without Heidi right now if you want. Let's do that. And then we can talk about the meeting itself.
Oh, right. Okay.
Dan, do you mind chairing the meeting? I will kick it off for you and you can just start our way through the agenda for the roll call as we wait for Heidi?
Hold on just a second. I have a text from Heidi indicating she's trying to get into the meeting.
Okay, I'm looking for her. Keep looking.
I'll let her know you're trying to connect.
Sure, I can try to. Oh, I don't know. I haven't gotten a text from her or email.
And as far as chairing, I missed the last meeting and don't
Okay.
know that I can facilitate an extension of the last meeting.
Okay, sure.
Having been absent. So if possible, I'd like to decline if someone
Okay.
else can take that.
That's fine. That's totally fine. We'll give Heidi like 2 more minutes if we know she's trying to get in.
Okay.
Adrian, I'm happy to fill in if need to. Just if
To
you
get
can-
started.
Yeah, if you want to walk me through it, if
Okay.
he's not here in a couple minutes.
Okay,
Thank you, Liam.
thank you, Liam.
Yep.
Adrian, while we're waiting, I was wondering if you sent out 2 documents to the team,
Mhm.
and I was hoping you could orient me on them. Are they from different iterations, or the goals under one of them don't line up with the goals in the other one?
That's correct. They're 2 different products. So the one is Courtney's draft and then the other is my draft.
Okay, got it.
So we're going to try to see what overlaps, reconcile the 2. And obviously feedback and comments, we'll leave it open for more.
Okay, thank you. I just needed the decoder ring to
Sure.
kind of know where to focus. Thank you.
Is this a particular section? So far we were doing everything based on like a section. Is there a section number for this? Just so it's.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is section 8.
Okay, I don't see that on a Word document there.
True, we're still in draft. It's not formatted.
Right, okay. But it's section 8, okay. I don't know how, if you skip some second, yeah, we were going through them pretty good and then.
All right, everyone, I will start the meeting here. And at a minimum, get through the preamble. Heidi is trying to get on. She's had to move to a place where she has better service. So, good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 meeting of the Gloucester Open Space and Recreation Committee. Consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. Persons who wish to do so are invited to view the meeting at the link provided on the City of Gloucester website under Remote Meetings, or join by phone by dialing any of the numbers posted with the meeting notice and agenda using the webinar ID 837-9916-7817. In the event that a live transmission proves unworkable for any reason, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the meeting will be made available on the city's website as soon as possible. And committee, before we begin, I want to talk to you a little bit about the agenda, and essentially to say, as I had said before, I posted this agenda before I went away for the week of Thanksgiving. So it is a repeat of a previous agenda, and that is okay because we are not introducing any new material, and we are also not likely to cover all of the items on the agenda tonight. So at our last regularly scheduled meeting on October 28th, we were walking through the draft OSRP sections as we had received them from MAPC. And those sections included the introduction, the community setting, and the environmental inventory and analysis. Those were sections 2, 3, and 4. One of the takeaways from that was that I was going to connect with the city's new environmental engineer and city sanitarian, and also the Shellfish Constable for updated language on the sections pertaining to the matters that they act specifically on. And I have done that, and they have come back. So I have updated numbers on the number of septic systems in Gloucester and the environmental needs analysis, and also on the natural resource management as it's pursuant to Shellfish. So Section 5, the inventory of lands and conservation and recreation interest. We have seen a lot of that material already, as it is the mapping and the database that we were working on about 6 months ago. The language that's going to be inserted to hold the place in the plan is yet to be drafted, but it is certainly mostly covered in the memo that staff planner Gemma Wilkins had drafted as part of a description of the methodology for the inventory work that we did. Section 6 and 7, the community vision for open space and recreation and analysis of needs, actually set up the discussion for the goals and objectives, section 8. And so the recommendation from MAPC was that we should really have section 8 pretty tightly organized before drafting sections 6 and 7. So we are here tonight to work on section 8, and this will be our second meeting to step through that. You will recall in the past meetings, we had a draft set of goals that looked like this. It was a big bulleted list that we walked through. I can certainly put it on the screen if it's hard and you don't automatically remember what that was. But we spent a couple of hours talking through the goals. We had 5 or 6 goals in place. And now since then, I've circulated to you a little bit more language around those bulleted lists. It's a little bit different in the organization. That's the document that I also took around to several city department head stakeholders, the DPW director, the city engineer, the environmental engineer, the community development director, the city planner, and the harbor master to talk about what was relevant to them. And most of that I have managed to incorporate into the goals and objectives documents that I circulated to you today. So that is where we land. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our acting chair, Mr. Anastasia Murphy, if you don't mind, starting us from the top of the agenda.
Yep, that sounds good. Okay. So, do I just read it right here?
Read it right off.
Okay. So we're going to start off with the administrative briefing. So I'll do a quick roll call. And so Member Morris.
Present.
Member Poulin.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
And then do I do myself as well?
You do.
All right, member Anastasia Murphy, and I am here as well.
Great.
Awesome. Chair communications. I'm acting chair, so I don't have any communications. Perhaps Heidi has some when she gets here. So we'll just go right down to, are we going to do public comment right now, or we've done it at the end before?
Sure. So I actually spoke with the chairwoman about public comment, and I have received some comments about public comment. And so I guess I'll make a couple statements about that now. Heidi may want to later as well. And just in talking about public comment in general, on a meeting notice of agenda, according to the open meeting law, there is actually not a requirement for public comment unless there are public hearings that are posted with a legal notice and a butter notification, or it is a matter that must be deliberated in a public setting. So this committee, because it is an advisory board, does not have open hearings typically. The plan process itself will have the forum, which is the most open hearing relevant to the work that we do. But in general, we do not post for these things. And by having public meetings, we are already deliberating in public. So having said that, public comment is not a requirement on the agenda at all. It is the pleasure of the chair to include public comment in the meeting notice and agenda because, and I believe the committee agrees, we do feel that it is important to solicit feedback from any members of the public who may be watching. Tonight, there are 12 attendees on the call who are watching us right now. And then the location of public comment on the agenda is also at the discretion of the chair who sets the agenda. Some chair people do like to put it at the very end because then the public has the opportunity to observe the entire meeting and comment back. And some chair people like to put the public comment period at the top of the agenda so that the public has the opportunity to comment on previous meeting matters before the new discussion opens. So in this case, the chairwoman has decided to put public comment at the top of the agenda. And also, as part of that, to say the open space and recreation plan process actually has a very long open public comment period. It's about a month long. And so when we come to the end of draft sections here and we collate this document into one physical body, it's going to be submitted to the Division of Conservation Services and also to the City Council and to the Planning Board and to the Conservation Commission and to the Mayor's Office and to pretty much every other body that member Dan Morris has referenced in the past, and also local nonprofit agencies who are stakeholders and the public, and available for public comment for about 30 days. And so the expectation is that the committee is going to get a significant number of memos back with commentary and, written responses to what we have put into this plan and recommendations or affirmations of our work. So having said that, because that is the only business item here, it is also the pleasure of the chair to request that public comment really only reference matters that are not on the agenda. So if the public would like to comment on open space and recreation relevant matters that are not subject to a discussion around the open space plan, they're more than welcome to do that at this time. But if the public is interested in commenting on the plan itself, then the chairwoman really requests that they hold off until there is a completed product to actually review and to be released to the public. Because otherwise, public commenters are sort of assuming the role of committee members by attempting to participate in the deliberation, although it's outside of the agenda process. Okay, any questions about that? Not for the committee? Okay, having said that, you are welcome to open public comment and we will have a 3-minute maximum for comments. And Jeff Brown, I see your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. And you're unmuted. You ready to go? Jeff? Jeff, I think, so you are unmuted and you are welcome to speak if you are able. Okay, I'm going to skip over you for now, and I'm going to give Patty Page the floor. And if you are able to get your mic to work, then we'll come back around. Okay, Patty Page, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
Hi, Adrian. Am I?
Yep, I got you.
Hi, thank you. Patty Page, 3 Tidal Cove Way. I just want to, I appreciate what you just presented, Adrian. I just want to make sure that I was clear what I heard. I understand the rules about not speaking on the agenda and the draft plan. Once the draft plan comes out, I just want to know about process now. You kind of quickly said at the end of the draft, it goes to DCS, City Council, Concom, all the places you said. When does the public get these sections of this draft? Because that's what we'll be commenting on at an appropriate juncture. And I know it's difficult, but my experience with these things have been once all this work is done and everybody's invested and all the hard, heavy lift is done, it's very difficult to make comments stick that might be considered changes to the plan that's already now been drafted. And if it's already been sent to DCS, that's, you know, I'd like to get a hold of it before it gets, you know, disseminated at least out of the city. You know, I can understand the city board seeing it. So can you just be clear with us what the appropriate juncture is to comment on the sections and when we'll see draft language? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So the second forum in the plan process, there's an initial forum wherein the committee goes out for outreach and then follows up with surveys and focus groups and things like that to gather data. We've done that. And then the second forum is the presentation of the final draft. So from the moment of that second forum, at that time, the public is able to make the request for the entire draft plan and view it, because that forum is essentially opening the public comment period. There's an expectation there will be public comment at the forum itself. That will be initial feedback from the public. And then there's also the expectation that any of the public that's following tonight will know that that is the time to make the request for the entire plan and have the opportunity to review it at the beginning of the 30-day window. With respect to submitting the draft plan to the Division of Conservation Services, it is important to know this. That review process takes months. And typically the Division of Conservation Services does come back with comments. They never, ever come back and say, this plan is perfect and you are finished. Thank you. They always come back and say, we would like to see you work harder on this. We'd like to see you collect data on this. We would like to see more information on this in this section of the plan. So even though we think we're producing something that's very robust, there will be matters that come back that we haven't covered or we haven't covered completely enough to satisfy the interests of the Division of Conservation Services. And their comments will come back long after the public comment period closes. So essentially, we're just getting in line by submitting it to them. And we will be continuing to work the draft even after that initial submission. Does that help?
I see. Okay, so it's a review from DCS and then it comes back to you.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Sounds good. We'll look for that.
Okay. All right. So Marianne Boucher, you're next. I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Go ahead. There you are.
Thank you. Marianne Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. As we all know, Mados Field, Mados Playground, we've lost that as of right now. And in regards to that, a part of the project was to take the open space or some of the open space at the East Gloucester or behind the East Gloucester Elementary School known as the Lieutenant Arthur Maxwell Parsons Playground. Now, the Lieutenant Arthur Maxwell Parsons Playground is very near and dear to me. I've grown up right next door to that piece of land, 62 years old, and I've taken care of that piece of property for my entire life. I presented to the city council when they were in the process of looking at space between Veterans and Green Street. I presented them with some maps showing that they would be attempting to take part of the Maxwell Parsons Playground in order to make up for the no net loss of Mados Field. I never heard back from a city councilor in regards to it. I know open space. Any member from Open Space Commission respond to it or act on it. And that is a deeded land, and the city or the school department took a portion of the Lieutenant Arthur Maxwell Parsons Playground. It's a good portion. Took a portion of that to make up the no net loss of Mados Field. Now, they're going to take down the East Gloucester Elementary School. And when they do that, they're stating that they're basically going to give back the Lieutenant Arthur Maxwell Parsons portion that the gymnasium sits on. But that's going to be known now as the land of Mados Field. So essentially, it was stolen, as far as I'm concerned, from the children of East Gloucester. This was given to the children in 1937 from the Parsons family. And I would like to make note that I really hope that the Open Space Commission follows through with incidences like this in the future, and does it and sees to it that these pieces of land are protected and preserved. This has been here for nearly 100 years, and it was just taken without any notice, without any response back from anyone. I've questioned it for a few years now and have yet to hear back from anybody. So please keep that in mind with future land. And I hope to God that this land will not be eventually built on. Because at this point, we've seen what's happened with Mados Field, Mados Playground, and I'm worried that this could happen with this land in East Gloucester. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Valerie Nelson, you are next. I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. I'd just like to follow up sort of some editorial comments to what Patty Page said. I had said some of this at an earlier meeting, but that this process where MAPC says this is the route, this is the plan, these are the chapters, this is what you must do to get state approval, all of that. And then where the plan gets written behind
Closed doors.
And then that the public is only given a chance to comment on a completed plan. As Patty said, that really tends, there's no question about it, that it minimizes the ability of the public to actually shape a plan that reflects their own values. And the power and control over this rests in not just MAPC and state rules, but then the city staff apparently are involved, and a few members of this volunteer committee. There was a tremendous amount of discussion during the election season debates for mayor, at-large councilor, even school committee, about how broken the public engagement process is in this community. And I think for the country as a whole, this alienation of people from government, because so much is decided ahead of time by outside parties or experts and not by the people, has led to this steady erosion that we've seen here in who shows up because they know they have so little ability.
Yep.
The way it's set up. And I would say that it's well understood that the process is broken. I'm optimistic that the city council and the mayor's office and staff will completely revamp the public engagement so that this practice comes to an end, so that people who live here understand and see that their values shape the plan, not MAPC state mandated structures to how to think about, what to analyze, what to prioritize. And something like this has to be done, and not that we are then consigned to the beginning of a meeting and all of that, that we need a wholesale change. And I think those who ran for office understood this thoroughly and made commitments to do better going forward. And, you know, we're going to live with the structure that we have, but just so you all know, the massive amount of disenchantment with the public participation process as structured and the inability to actually influence these plans in any significant way. The literature would say we do decentralization and implementing what the state wants. Devolution is when local communities have serious ability to shape their future. And that's when the public is actively engaged and not as alienated as it is from the process. So you're caught in this process. Let's all hope together that we're able to remake our community and our governance structures so that people come to know that locally, we have an ability to shape these kinds of plans to reflect our values and perspectives and priorities and not have them decided ahead of time by outside bureaucracies. So thank you for the chance to put the widespread literature discussion and what is in our own community and what came up over and over in election debates and all of that. So you probably all have some ideas too to contribute that, knowing what you've just been going through and how little the public has actually been involved. Thank you.
Okay, next is Jeff. I'm going to try you again.
Hi there, thank you.
Good, there you go.
Sure. I just had a question. I know that when communities develop an open space plan, there are a lot of options, right? They can do it in-house, they can work with a planning agency, they can work with municipal staff and volunteers. So the city chose to work with MAPC. Now this is an organization that it's hard to learn about. I've read the Gloucester Daily Times articles. I've tried to get a general understanding of what MAPC is and what it does. What concerns me is what lies on the back end and working with MAPC as a planning agency. It just appears to me that they have their own interests, almost an agenda, if you will, to see that things are done a certain way. So my question is, what role does MAC play after the plan is completed? Are they part of the picture at all? I think they issue grants, or they are grantor. They don't. Okay. There's a section of land down in Linfield, I think, where I thought they provided a grant for like a 4-community piece of land down there. At any rate, is there a way to find out if they're part of the picture after the plan is completed?
No, it's a contracted service. So there is a service contract. The contract is to support the open space committee and the community development department through the drafting and completion of the open space plan update. So when the open space plan, when it comes back from the Division of Conservation Services, comes back to the open space committee, we've got all kinds of new public feedback from agencies, city departments, Division of Conservation Services, probably several other state agencies, city council, the mayor's office will be making a final set of edits and changes. And then at that time, it is presented to city council to be approved and the mayor's office to be approved. And the contract is fulfilled. And that's the end of the discussion and use of MAPC services by the Open Space Committee.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll have to go back and check what I've come across. I'm pretty certain that MAPC issued a grant down in Linfield area, but so you don't think, you never heard of MAPC and grants?
MAPC is a nonprofit, and government organization. It actually kind of straddles the two. There are several regional planning commissions in the Commonwealth. There's a Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. We are part of the Metro Area Planning Commission, which is MAPC. It's the Greater Boston Planning Commission, which is then subdivided into smaller task force groups. So MAPC does often support municipalities in applying for grants and carrying them through the grant process. But I am not aware that the organization actually distributes any funds. I don't believe that they have funds for those purposes. It's a consulting service for planning.
Okay, so I'll go back and watch this video again. It sounded like initially you said that MAPC is really out of the picture. And just a moment ago, you said that they kind of support the grant writing process. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I mean, if there is a grant, for example, or policy work that the city or any city, is attempting to execute, or any plan for that matter, they will partner with MAPC to help get it over the line. For example, we have several open contracts with MAPC, different consultants at this time in planning and conservation. There's a floodplain ordinance review that we have a totally different MAPC consultant. And actually there are 3 now teams working on. There's another one on the planning side of things that I think is related to the energy aggregation. I don't know, I'm not on it. So it's not uncommon. It's a pretty big service. Most municipalities use their regional planning commissions exactly for this purpose, to help them, support the staff in developing, implementing plans, developing and implementing grant programs, but it's all on contract. So it's the scope of the contract. And the scope of this particular contract with these 2 consultants from MAPC, plus the third that they've brought in to support them with some additional, small group work. It ends with the end of it, with the ratification of the plan, the approval of the plan by city council and the mayor's office. Now, if there are goals and objectives in the plan that involve, grant support and applying for grants, it's certainly within this, the expectation of the city to go back out and reach back out to MAPC and say, can you support us in drafting this grant application for this particular project that was identified in the open space plan? That could be 6 years from now, and not likely to get the same contractor again or consultant again either.
Okay, thank you. That kind of gives me a better idea. I do have concern about some of the grants that are following. This is probably another subject. Most of the grants I've seen come with requirements, and those requirements seem to take away from local control that municipalities have on their land and their properties. Excuse me, but I'll save that for another time. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
You're welcome, Jeff. Okay, Patty Emerald, I see your hand up. I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
So I used to sit on this committee, and I really appreciated all the work that the volunteers did. I'm still in total shock about what happened with Mados Field, and I'm not going to ever stop talking about it. I think my last breath might even be that. Who knows? But I'm just so concerned about what happened with that. And I was looking over a lot of papers that I've been reading in the Community Plan 2000. I mean, there's so many things that we're supposed to follow, and then we don't follow them. We just lost 2.7 acres of property, and it just seems like it's okay. And that kind of just freaks me out too. I also want to know, how are we going to make up for the loss of the playing fields? I mean, we all know how to add, and we know we had 2 fields at Green Street and we had 1 field at Mados. And so if we have 2 and 1 and we take, 3 and when we take away 2, we only have one, and I probably just screwed that up because I'm just like so freaked out about this whole thing that we can go on with these plans and we can, even talking about the grants, when you say the word grants, it just was like, we just wasted so much money. I don't, even if the lights go back up in Green Street or whatever happens, we are in appeal, and I do hope that we win. And without, it's not going to be Mado's. I think everyone has to think when we have a dedicated memorial field like this and any other, open spaces we have in the city, how really precious they are to all of us. I mean, I don't think, I reached out to the open space. I was on the open space when we were talking about Mado. You guys all helped me with Mado's. You helped me get the grant. You helped me do what we did. And then it was just so easy to let it go. And I don't know how you're going to not have that happen again. And I'm just really disappointed in that. And it was such a failure to me, such a failure. And I don't think I'll ever get over it. So I hope that you're able to, put this plan together, listening to the people, because nobody listened to me when I was coming to the meetings at the end, asking for help. No one listened to me. And I was talking on deaf ears, and I really feel I still am. And that really is hard for me. And I gave it my all, and it wasn't enough, was it? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Patty. And Marcia Hart. Oh, I see him. Okay, Marcia Hart, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I've been on a city committee for years in the past, and I know how challenging that can be to be in your position. And I know that the Conservation Commission, from talking to Dave Sargent, is like the busiest in the state. So you all have my compassion for what you're trying to do and working within a framework and trying to do your best. I had conversations with Heidi that were really nice, and I know you're all really trying to do good things for the city. I've been at most of these meetings. I participated in the surveys. I tried to get more people to participate in them. And yet I don't really feel a part of this. And when suddenly I'm going to end up with another big whole plan to look at and try and make a reasonable comment, an intelligent, a helpful comment on. And I don't know if you know how hard that is when there are so many things going on in the city that need attention. So I work on climate issues. I spend much of my life working on those, really researching legislation, trying to do good things for the city also. But I'm also concerned about the harbor plan. I'm concerned about the LLRP plan. I'm following this, that, and the other thing. As a citizen, I don't know if you remember how difficult it is to participate. I can see how difficult it is to be you, but you can't even see me, I don't think, or maybe you can see me and I can see you, but I can't see me on the screen. I've been in meetings where I raise my hand and you don't get recognized, where you get muted and unmuted and somebody else is just controlling everything you do. There's no chat function to participate. What the city is doing for public engagement, you can look at it on paper and call it robust if you want to, but it's a far cry from that. So I agree with what Valerie was saying about the lack of really real engagement of the public in a meaningful way. It's not meaningful for me to get a 30, 40, 50 page document that I'm supposed to comment on. I don't have the capacity to do that. There's something wrong with the system that gives that to the public to do. And I don't believe that you're responsible for that. I just want you to be aware that I'm one more citizen who agrees that MAPC has templates that they use, and it's a rote process. They claim also to be robustly engaging everyone. And I'm telling you, I'm not engaged. I'm here tonight, but I don't feel I'm not a part of this. And I'm not going to be able to be a good part of it either when you hand me that giant plan for me to comment on in the time period. And how much are my comments going to matter in the face of you getting the ones from DCR? I'm sure you're going to have to spend your time accommodating them rather than me. And it's too late. It's, you know, I go to committee meetings and they tell me, wait for the city council. I go to the city council meetings and they tell me I should have commented at the committee level. This city is really not functioning well in terms of the public. And I appreciate all of you being here and the work you're doing. So that is not individually or personally directed at you. It's directed at our processes. Thank you.
Marcia. Okay. Denise Pascucci, you are next. I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Go ahead. Oh, I'll try again. Ask to unmute.
Unmute.
There you go.
Now?
Yes.
Good. Hi, Denise Piscucci, 20 Birch Grove Heights. I'm kind of like piggybacking a bit on Patty Emerald and the situation with fields. I think it's very important for the city to recognize that we do have a shortage of ball fields. You know, you have Little League, you have girls ABC levels, you have Pee Wee, and of course we all know during certain seasons they overlap. The problem that Patty was talking about is that we had a field at Mados, we had 2 fields at Green Street, and we actually had a field at East Gloucester, which was taken, and now there's no field there. So what I wanted to tell you is just a quick little story about a cousin of mine. Her little daughter plays for the East Gloucester Vikings. We know we have a very robust girls leagues, and it's gotten very good and brought in a lot of good ball players. And I think it's wonderful. It's getting very popular. So what happened is the East Gloucester Vikings had their home at East Gloucester. Of course, East Gloucester Vikings, East Gloucester School. They took some of the field to put a playground. So they got kicked out of there. So they were, oh God, where are we going to go now to have a home field? So they said, oh, let's go up to Fuller. Oh, so they had Fuller. They were wonderful. They had a home field. And of course, Fuller was sold along with the rest of the property. So again, now they're homeless. Where are East Gloucester people going to go? So then they said, okay, hey, let's go to Mados. Girls, no one has a Mados Fields for their home field. So of course, now they have Mados Field and they're calling it the good field. They have bathrooms, they have lights. You know, where do girls in Gloucester have to play on a really nice field? And of course, now we all know that that was taken away again. So piggybacking back on Patty is that is a very big issue in Gloucester. You're taking field space away from the youth of this city. And we all know that with technology and all, we have kids that are sitting, even my grandchildren are guilty of sitting around with their iPad, and they just get so engrossed into that they're not outside playing like we did in my generation. You know, your parents kicked you out the door. And if we keep allowing the city to take open space in our recreational areas away, what are our children going to do? Someone asked me, okay, now that they're going to do a softball field at Green Street, what's going to happen to the Pee Wee? I know that Pee Wee football that play there. I know I drive by all the time to go to Market Basket, and I see them with their helmets and the cheerleaders, and oh my God, how wonderful it is. And I hope you all feel the same way, is that it's wonderful to see our youth have a place to play. And during, like I said, during certain seasons, they overlap and then there's no place to play. So I hope that you guys will advocate for us and say, you can't be taking this space away. Our children deserve it. My grandchildren deserve it. And you know what? We have a beautiful city. And one thing I say to people is when they talk about open space and what's going on, and I say, you know what, let's look at it this way. You look at Stage 4 Park, and I go up there and I love it. I took my grandson up there, and it was disgusting to see some of the things that were broken, because there are broken things up at that playground and it hasn't been taken care of. But you look at that open space and I said, do you want that to have condos and buildings? And they're absolutely, we don't. And I said, well, that's the whole thing about the rest of the city of Gloucester. Let's take our city and protect it. Let's protect our fields. Let's protect for our children to have a nice, safe place to play. And I hope that that's what you're gearing up to do. And hopefully someday I'd like to be on your committee because now I'm an open space person. So thank you for your time. And I hope you understand that we do need open space. Thank you.
There is a vacancy, although you will have to wait until the new year to apply because the city council is very near to the end of their session.
Well, I think I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer. I got some things on my plate right now, but in the future, all of a sudden I care about this open space. And, I played at Mados Field for 40 years. I was part of the Light Up Mados. It took us 3 years to raise $280,000. So it means a lot to me that these places, they're there for people to use and our children deserve it. So that's my opinion, but hopefully maybe in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, keep us in mind. Okay, Linda McCarrison, I see your hand up. I'm going to allow you to talk. Thank you for waiting and ask you to unmute.
There, I think you can hear me.
Yes.
Linda McCarrison, 16 Quarry Street. I would like simply to take the comments, the statements, the information, the thoughts, ideas, the judgments of the people who've spoken before me tonight, and gather them together and present them to you again and actually ask you a question. Is there something you can do as a group? Let me back up just a little bit. Let me say, what people are saying tonight at this meeting is not unique to you as a group. It is thoroughgoing in Gloucester, as we know, in many different committees and boards, and many different things that happen that simply are not, should not be able to happen, should not have happened, that people wonder how it's even legal. We have a new administration about to be sworn in, and perhaps since Mr. Verga was very strong on transparency and accountability and access, it might be a moment when he would be open to hearing from some of the different groups that they actually want to speak for the people who've spoken to them and advocate for some changes that would structurally open up your work earlier or in a different way to the public. And I don't have a solution to the problem, but I'm asking you if you would actually do something like perhaps put this issue on one of your agendas for yourself to discuss. Is there a way that you can turn around to MAPC and the city of Gloucester and whoever and say, the people we represent are not happy with the fact that their experience in the city and their knowledge of the city, their wisdom about the city is being not only lost, but trampled on. I mean, so I'm asking you if you can actually become active on our behalf, not just mine, of course. I'm a newcomer in every way, but what people are saying who know these things deeply, and I'm going to say this in other places, not just here to you, but actually ask you a question. Would you find a way to include this very important issue on your own agenda and see if there's anything that could be done to make you not be an obstacle to the public, but to have you be a portal for the public to its agency, meaning the agency of the public. That's all I have to say is I want to make it a question. And I would like perhaps to have an answer that might have come out of your having gotten together and spoken about this very thing at some other time.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Madam Chairwoman, for the record, Heidi Wakeman has joined the meeting. And so Mr. Anastasia Murphy, thank you, but you are relieved. And there are 11 attendees on the call. There are no additional members of the public to comment at this time. I welcome you to close the public comment period and move on with the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, members of the public that have joined us, and also members of the committee. I hope I have a new laptop perhaps at holiday time, so I apologize for that and appreciate your presence and your understanding. So at this time, we are taking a look at, and I'll be sharing my screen, taking a look at the, let's see here. Let's see if I can do this here. The draft goals, which I think are very exciting in lieu of this conversation, light of this conversation rather, the very serious concerns that people have brought and also very familiar concerns. I think that a lot of what is on here is really powerful. So I'm looking forward to sharing it, and I'm going to get that right up and then read it. And I believe right now that we're just going through it to see what people have to say. And again, this is a plan that's going for, it's not finalized, and there is a time for public comment. So I just want to be clear that I'm sharing this, these comments, the Adrian Lennon, correct, Adrian? Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. And so committee members, you know, this is the objective here. This is now version 3, draft goals with more language. I did change some things around, and, you know, the goals, and in terms of the high level goals, the language we use to describe the high level goals, I moved them a little bit. For example, I put the preservation of open space at the top ahead of stewardship, because obviously I think the preservation comes first. I did combine goal 3 and 4 in a way which were protect and improve gateways and create strategic connections, because I felt that the two were better together than separated. And then there are places where I kind of just ran out of language, and I sort of said things like the primary focus areas of this particular objective are these locations or of these types of activities. And I'm hoping that the Open Space Committee is able to give me some feedback and some additional language to incorporate into those points without making it so specific that we kind of box ourselves out of new opportunities for improvements. Or if you like it the way it is, then of course that's it. But that's the goal here for tonight. And when we're finished with that, we can take some time to look over the MAPC submission and try to see what we want to incorporate into this one and take that with us. So I'm going to leave it to Heidi and the committee to really discuss this, because I know what it is. And I think if you have questions, it's important to actually just document those questions right now. And I'm sure there will be a process of digesting the information for each of the committee members, and you can all submit comments back to me in writing if you want. We will probably set a timeline for when we're looking for another draft to come out. Our next meeting date, for reference for everybody, is going to be December 8th. So it will ideally be before that December 8th meeting. That's actually a week away. So keep that in mind as we're walking through it, and just take your time, think it through, think of anything that may be missing, mark it up, and I will be listening and available to answer questions, but mostly just trying to allow you as the committee to work with the material. Okay, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Adrian. Can people see my screen? I don't know. I'm new at this, so how does it look for? Can people see that?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to start reading with open space and recreation. Whoopsies. Oh boy. Oh yeah, just with some definitions here. Open space and recreation land refers to conservation land, forested land, agricultural land, parks, fields, and playgrounds, and amenities such as green buffers and landings. Land that is undeveloped or vacant is considered open space. and to have conservation or recreation potential. Open space varies by ownership, levels of protection, and use. Recreational use further define open space into two categories. Open space and recreation land for passive recreation requires minimal facilities and less maintenance to serve users that have a lower environmental impact or no low public use at all. These uses are walking, hiking, fishing, paddling. This land can be conserved land left in its natural state and prioritized for its plant or animal habitats, water supply protection, and other natural, historical, or cultural features. It can also be land that is managed for passive use, including trails, vista points, and forests. So we've got passive recreation. Open space and recreation land for active recreation requires specialized facilities and high maintenance support to serve users engaged in structured activities. These users are playing team sports on fields or courts, using playgrounds, and gathering for entertainment or cultural events. This land can be recreational facilities and equipment found on school properties or community parks. It can also be golf courses, public landings, marinas, and beaches. For the purpose of organizing the discussion around goals and action items for Gloucester's open space and recreation land, the following definitions apply. Open space is land used for passive recreation. Recreation land is land used for active recreation. There are places where use types regularly overlap. In these cases, the property of interest is considered as a both and instead of an either or to ensure all concerns are identified. So I think that's really important, just to lay out like definitions about what we're talking about here. Clear. I know there's one typo in there, uses instead of users. And we can give that feedback. Any comments or questions about that from the committee or clarity?
Yeah, what's for passive, I mean, Adrian touched on this earlier, but it says these uses are for walking, hiking, fishing, and paddling. I guess, I mean, do we need to include other stuff, or I mean, what's the narrow, broad scope, right? I mean, we could include like mountain biking or like, or
Yeah,
like
maybe.
biking or other things like that.
Right. So I love that, because maybe you could say, we could even add there like uses include but are not limited to
Okay, yeah.
walking. I like that. And also mountain biking is a great example because it's really limited facilities, of course, trail maintenance, but that's great.
Yeah. Can we change language like that? And I think that would be, I like that idea of if everyone else is on board of doing something like, include but not limited to, and then maybe add in like biking and climbing.
Yeah.
I think those would be good for passive recreation.
Isn't, this is Dave Sargent, isn't this one of those areas where it includes passive as well as active?
I don't think so, because I think things like mountain biking and climbing, it's the same facilities you would use for walking and hiking, right? So I'm thinking like Red Rocks and that area. So it's the same land. It's not like a specialized facility.
Quick question, are the terms active and passive, are they provided to us through the open space, developers handbook? Because they don't seem to be apt for their application here. We're not talking about passive. Passive is, to me, is sitting. And I don't mean this, I can get over this quibble, but I think that may be the kind of the crux of our confusion or our discomfort with these terms.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you. And also, I don't know. So I'm just taking notes right now that said, where did the language come from? And I have a feeling that it is I think that it is a term that is not our term, that is a state term, or it's in that it's in the handbook.
It's a term of art from the handbook. And I just have to get over it and do as they're doing. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but and not to belabor that point, I wanted to also raise up. I had included this in the notes I provided to MAPC, is that there's recreation that occurs separate from designated lands and the lands that are described in these paragraphs, and so pedestrians and cyclists use the roads and the any bike lanes and roadways and that sort of thing that we have. And so in this definitional area, it seems to me that at least a passing reference to recreation that occurs, recreation of those sorts that occurs outside of the open space and recreation lands should be flagged.
yeah, because it doesn't really show in this here, like cycling is not really in either of these things. Like just people riding their bikes is not
Right.
one or the other. So what shall I, so
I can look for the language that I provided to Courtney that apparently didn't get picked up and see, see if that's acceptable to the committee.
great. Okay. Now, you can see, yeah,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
One other thing, I recall, it hasn't been something we've deliberated much, but I recall that formerly we were including cemeteries in kind of a laundry list of open space, and I don't think there's reference to that. And that's a rather large, by space, rather large land category or land type. And if it is truly considered to be open space, then I think a mention of it here would be appropriate.
Yeah, so that would be maybe both and, or yeah,
that's-
cemeteries would be in there too.
Yeah, that would be very passive recreation.
And there is well, yeah. All right, you can see the beach ball of doom that is spinning. Oh, yay, there it is. Hooray. I was hoping that would not limit us here. So, okay. Well, let's move on then. Unless I know Mark is here. I just want to say hello, Mark, and Liam, thank you. So we're moving on to any comments from Mark or Dave? Okay. Goal number 1, develop and direct a program of strategic preservation of open space and recreation lands using the existing inventory produced for this plan. Create a common pathway to conserving land currently under limited or no protection. Okay, sorry, I apologize for this here. This is, I don't know what the next line was, but I'm just going to go following parcel types: parcels of unknown ownership ID, parcels in city ownership with conservation restrictions, parcels in city ownership to place into conservation restrictions, merge parcels for survey purposes, parcels defined as land of low value, marshlands, parcels in private ownership. And if anybody else has this open on their computer, again, you can see my computer is just having a little trouble. So
Yeah, you want me to take over, Heidi?
that would be great. Thanks, Liam.
Okay.
Or just if you have it open, then can you screen share too? Or I just don't want it to crash or.
I don't know if I can screen share. I can try.
Well, maybe if you just read above the,
Yeah, if Adrian makes me a co-host, I can screen share, but it doesn't matter. I can also just read. It's totally fine.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now I can share.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically what we're doing right now is just looking through. Oh, great.
Okay, so you can see it. Good.
Yep. Perfect.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, so the one statement that I missed was continue to refine and improve the open space inventory. Oh yeah, so we're, if you want to scroll down, that would be great, or scroll up. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So I guess the only piece I missed was objectives. To meet goal 1, continue to refine and improve the open space inventory, which we're working on with the planning department, with Gemma's great work, Noel's great work, reconciling the different types of parcels. B, monitor the open space and recreation land inventory and improve analysis tools to treat the database as a living record, in quotes, of the current status of available and conserved land in Gloucester. With these 4 steps, cycle annual updates from and to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Greenbelt, TNC, the Nature Conservancy, and other entities hosting GIS parcel databases of interest. Launch the update cycle in line with the CPA program to capture new priorities, clarify and confirm conservation restrictions held by the Conservation Commission, not an outside entity. 4, identify and preserve public access rights of way to interior open spaces. So this looks like if A is continue, B would be to monitor and improve analysis tools. So any thoughts or feedback on that from the committee? Seems pretty straightforward. And I will just say too, for our audience listening at home, that the CPA program has dedicated funds through real estate taxes and the Community Preservation Act that is guaranteed for open space and recreation projects and programs. And one that's currently being funded is the Young Legends Street Hockey Program at Stage Fort Park. That's an exciting new opportunity. And the Avis Murray tennis courts are just that's another recreation that the CPA helped fund, which is state money and our money, our City of Gloucester money. So C, focus land conservation efforts in areas identified as containing valuable natural resources, including priority wildlife habitat, watershed lands that supply Gloucester's drinking water, areas with large contiguous blocks of undeveloped open space, and critical areas or environmental and areas with large contiguous blocks of undeveloped open space and critical areas or environmental and climate resiliency concerns. Transfer the following parcels into permanent protection via conservation restriction. 1, Dogtown Parcel Cluster and North Gloucester Woods. 2, city beaches and adjacent marshlands. 3, city parks and active recreation areas. So through the survey and through focus groups or information from the public that we've received, people have cared about conserving land that we already have, which is listed, which are parcels and parks and properties listed here. But it seems like the gist is transfer the following parcels into permanent protection. And again, that's very broad and also specific. So do committee members have any feedback about C?
I would like to have a little feedback.
Yeah.
I think we should include underserved areas because I really believe we need to focus in on those underserved areas.
Mm-hmm. For land conservation efforts.
Particularly the inner city.
So conserve, okay. So if this bullet is, or this point is focus land conservation efforts in areas identified as containing valuable natural resources, particularly in the inner city. Yes, so not merely watershed lands, not merely wildlife habitat, not merely large contiguous blocks, but also areas that are within the inner city, Ward 1, or is that right? Ward 1? Yeah.
You're right, Ward 2.
Ward 2, thank you.
Right,
Um,
right.
Yeah.
I like this idea, and I was wondering if, Dave, would it satisfy you if right before the word transfer, you could add a sentence that says special consideration should be given to conservation of natural resources as above in the underserved community of Gloucester.
However, it's, dictated, right?
So then that, because that way this first sentence, which kind of holds together really nicely, would stand, and then you just add a sentence here to special consideration would be for, the areas that Dave mentioned. If that's okay. Is that-
I took your words verbatim, practically, Dan. Special consideration given to natural resources located in underserved areas.
If that satisfies Dave,
You're fine. I really think that we need to focus in on, underserved areas.
Thank you for saying that, Dave. And thank you, Dan, for your suggestion. Any other comments about this topic C, or I don't know what, it's not a bullet point, it's a C, section C, focus land conservation efforts. Okay, moving on, section D, promote and support the acquisition and permanent protection via conservation and restriction of the following parcel types. 1, land for conservation purposes, e.g. wildlife habitat and water supply protection. 2, land for parks and facilities in areas that lack parkland. 3, land and easement right-of-way access to the Commonwealth tidelands, public landings. 4, lands for protection of areas from storm surge and sea level rise. So this is a pretty expansive and powerful bullet, or I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to say heading, or I don't know, category. Promote and support acquisition and permanent protection via conservation restriction. So would there be something in here as well for the last section, or do we feel like that was covered? Like, do we want that language about, and I feel like areas that lack parkland, like, could we say with special consideration given to underserved areas, or is that just land for, I don't know. Or if we're just wordsmithing, or if we feel like it doesn't need to be in this one here.
I think the second item here that says land for parks and facilities in areas that lack parkland covers the underserved communities. If I'm reading it as that way. I was wondering if also if there should be another mention of CPA funding and the CPA cycle here as a vehicle for this acquisition, or if that's assumed and not necessary.
Yeah, I like that. Dan, I think that including like how we'll do it, I mean, via conservation restriction, maybe, and CPA funds. I don't know if that goes right in there, because it seems like CPA funds are for acquisition, or can be used for acquisition, maybe in partnership with the trustees, in partnership with a land trust. But
maybe it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it is referenced in item B.
Yeah.
Already.
Well, again, this is I'm writing it down and suggesting it, and then we can put it in or see how it looks or not. But
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so when you move the page up, do you call that scrolling up or scrolling down? Because I don't know, I don't know the language. If I want you, Liam, if I want you to go to the next goal, is that scrolling up or scrolling down?
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Okay, all right, I don't know.
Scroll down. Let's say scroll down.
Perfect, scroll down. Okay. Moving on to goal number 2, improve stewardship and management of Gloucester's open space of conservation lands, trails, forests, and vista points. So again, improving the stewardship and management objectives. A, promote responsible and careful use of open space by expanding awareness of stewardship needs through public outreach and education. 1, develop and install signage and adopt trail standards. 2, establish rules and regulations for users. 3, produce maps, guides, and educational materials. Sounds like a really important and helpful part of our open space and like a real thing that we can do instead of just having meetings or not merely having meetings, but to make something and create something to help people access and utilize and come to our public spaces, our open spaces. Any thoughts about this one, A?
You know, perhaps establish rules and regulations, maybe guidelines, you know,
Yeah. Instead of the words rules and regulations.
or add that to it.
Yeah. Okay, rules, regs, guidelines. Yeah.
And the third bullet, I mean, is it produce or is it update or produce? I mean, is there a lot out there that just needs updating, or do we need new material, or?
Yeah. Update. And then I think my question would be like, so who actually is doing that? Like, are we doing that as the committee, or is that like how is that happening? And maybe that's not, I don't know. Like what can we do in concert with other groups that already have maps, for instance, or how do we I like this. And also I feel like some places don't need a kiosk because there's already one there. So, but some places really do, like the Marble Road Conservation Area, that sign has seen better days for sure. So, but I like this one too. I feel like these are tangible ways to help make things better for users.
Yeah.
What if it said promote maps, guides, and educational materials?
Oh, to promote them. Yeah. Well, I feel like even if we produce them or produce and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, produce and promote, maybe that one, produce and promote.
Okay.
You know, because I feel like one of the things that I know I've felt I've wanted or I've considered on this committee is, so what do? We do advocacy. We work for, you know, projects that are near and dear to us individually, perhaps. And then also we want to make have services for the community, which may include, oh, here's, you know, a series of walks that are available, but is it duplicating? I don't know, like how is what we do, could we be a clearinghouse for information on our website or
Right.
on a social media page? So yeah, produce and promote. I like that. And I think that comes up elsewhere, not under this goal, because this again is the improving stewardship and management.
Right.
So which I think is coming up. So, but I'm going to add on there, produce and promote. So any other thoughts about A, section A?
Yes.
Yes.
And maybe this is too weedy for this part of the plan. A couple of meetings ago, I mentioned the idea of, I think, adapting the work that Gemma has been doing into some kind of public-looking tool where people could click on playground and all the playgrounds are highlighted. People could click on, you know, open space for hiking and all those properties, and with an eye towards giving people alternatives. And there were concerns that were expressed in the public survey about some of the public facilities being, you know, too loved and too well attended. And so the idea was to give people options, let them know that there are other things. And a handy tool might be on the city's website, you know, a map where people can say, I want to go to a different playground. I want to go to a different place to walk, a different beach. And you can have, you know, kind of the metadata or the, you know, and some descriptive information about these, and, you know, in a simple mapping program or some application like GIS that they be with a web interface. So I don't know if this is a place to mention that, or if it's just sort of in our background notes that this is what we mean.
I love that idea. I think that is a great use of technology and the information we have and the resources we have. My question is, if the goal is to improve stewardship and management, does it fit under promote? I guess it, I don't know, maybe I'm wondering how promoting responsible and careful use, well, by expanding awareness of stewardship through so
if for example, if you have a map and someone clicks on Red Rocks and a little, you know, the area is highlighted on the map, there could be an info box, I believe this is doable, that says, you know, 11 parking places, you know, no bathroom, not handicapped accessible, and you know, and here are the rules, you know, or click here for, you know, further information. So to my mind, that could promote responsible and careful use by, you know, the act of having to fill in those blanks in some sort of template suggests that someone would have to think about each one of the spaces and ask some basic management questions. Are there toilets? Do we want toilets? Is there signage? Do we want signage? Is there parking? And, you know, and so on. And then put it in this descriptive guide that it would be more easily updated and more cheaply updated than any printed material.
yeah, the trustees has an app that's similar to that. I mean, it might even take you to the website of the places, but I believe it's a map of New England, and then you click and it gives maybe just a brief overview. So I think that's a fabulous idea. And I think if the idea is that a stewardship and management is not just up to the DPW and the sustainability director and or beach rangers, it's up to the people that are using it, citizens and visitors alike. So, okay. Well, I think that if it's not in there, Dan, then it'll be somewhere else, your suggestion, and or, I mean, I feel like that could be definitely part of, you know, maps, guides, educational materials, app, or, you know, include the information. Again, maybe to your point, maybe we don't need to write it all in here, but include the information that Gemma has put together in here to make something that's user friendly.
And I don't know the technology and am not wedded to a particular approach. I just recall that Gemma is a GIS whiz and perhaps could do that for us.
Yeah. Any other comments? Thank you, Dan. Any other comments or additions to section A? Okay, moving on. Develop partnerships with local organizations and institutions to support the city's management needs. 1, promote youth stewardship and environmental learning through the Gloucester Public School District. Love it. 2, establish stewardship groups via neighborhoods, user groups, and community groups. 3, promote partnerships with the trustees, Essex County Greenbelt Association, Mass Audubon, New England Forestry Foundation, Rotary International, Generous Gardeners, Cape Ann Trail Stewards, Mass Mutters, and other nonprofits. 4, promote partnerships with state and federal agencies, including the Department of Conservation and Recreation, Division of Marine Fisheries, U.S. Coast Guard. Any comments or additions or thoughts about this one?
I'm wondering if we want to promote partnership with NOAA, because, you know, they have a lot of restoration activities, you know, that can take place, you know, with a lot of our open space areas.
Okay, add NOAA. Yeah, and I sort of like the including but not limited to, or, you know, that this is not an comprehensive list.
Right.
But yeah, I wrote that down on here. Anybody else? I do know that we already do have some, the city is partnering with some of these groups. Cape Ann Trail Stewards, it comes first to mind. And I do know that this is a great range of interest groups and connection to open space. So it's certainly not exhaustive, but it covers a lot of ground, so to speak. Okay, any other comments for section B? Or questions? Okay, so moving on, section C, develop and implement land management plans for priority parcel clusters to guide protection and management of natural resources and address issues such as invasive species, overuse, inappropriate use, and climate change. Use these priority plans to inform needs of other similar areas. The following parcel clusters have been identified as having high priority for land management plans: Good Harbor Beach, St. Peter's Park, Corliss Landing, Dogtown Commons, Stagefort Park, O'Malley Innovation Middle School recreation areas. So moving on, it's number 1. Develop a baseline set of conditions that exist on a property on which the goals for the land management plans are based. Generate a standard inventory or report to use in evaluating properties. 2, define current and intended uses of including public access, restrictions or easements, and regulatory requirements. 3, identify the property management entity and supporting city departments, staff, non-municipal organizations, and volunteers responsible for the execution of the maintenance tasks. 4, identify funding sources for maintenance tasks such as outside grants, in-kind contributions of services and/or materials, user fees, city budget. 5, increase operating and capital budgets for more personnel to focus on the city's parks and recreation system. Implement an annual reporting and reconciliation mechanism into the city's annual budget cycle to outline short-term and long-term maintenance needs. I don't know if there's a 6. Can you scroll down, Liam? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this one's pretty comprehensive and also has some very, seems like very defined work and or suggestions and priorities. I don't know much about land management plans. So, but I do work at O'Malley, so I'm happy to see that on there. And it's also quite a range of waterfront, the beach, Corliss Landing. Corliss Landing is in Riverview. Is that Wheeler Street? No. Where's Corliss Landing?
It's right off of Wheeler Street.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, Riverview. And then Dogtown Commons, I don't know if that's a specific, what that entails, but of course, Stageport Park. So those are high priority for land management plans. So any comments or feedback? I know for me, I like the increase operating and capital budgets for more personnel to focus on the city parks and recreation system. And I know that there's been a call for a sustainability director to look at issues of climate change, climate crisis, and in a comprehensive way, not just one area, one part of the city, but to work with other communities, and also to coordinate our community's responses to current climate change issues and future. So I feel like that could even possibly go there, but maybe that's not the place for it. I do know increase operating budgets, capital budgets it's important for me.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions or clarifications needed for these? And St. Peter's Park is where the fiesta happens. Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Do we specifically ask anywhere in these recommendations for like an open space steward to be added as a position?
I did not see that.
Okay.
I did not see that, but there is a comment about the lack of public or parks and recreation director that many people feel that is impacts how things are managed, that without that, there's a lack of coordination. Yeah. So I don't know that it's, I think, I can't remember if it's in this document or the other document.
I believe the previous plan had a recommendation for a steward, or someone who would be around and responsive to maintenance questions and complaints or concerns about activities in open spaces, and and probably be in and about them regularly. And that seems like a good idea still to me, rather than and with that level of specificity, rather than leaving it open to, what do we say here, something like sufficient staffing. If the it's the will of the committee, of course, and I would be interested in seeing a recommendation of that sort.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think it would be nice to have a open space parks and recreation commission director, rather than just having the DPW deal with it and then the Conservation Commission deal with the open space, but to have a director for all of those things.
Mhm. I agree. And I think that's different than a sustainability director. I think that both jobs would have plenty to do, and they would be valuable additions to our city personnel. So, okay, I will add that. So not merely a steward, but like a parks, like really like an open space and recreation director, or
Parks, recreation and open space director.
open space director. Okay. Any other comments about this this section? Okay, scroll down. Thank you so much. This is great. I appreciate your help, Liam. Goal 3, maintain, enhance, and expand Gloucester's recreation facilities and associated programming. So this might be where we get a little bit more specific about a person. A, develop a facilities maintenance management plan to assess capital improvement needs and routine maintenance of city recreation facilities and track the progress of investment. B, manage programming and stewardship of facilities through the city website and existing service portals. 1, gather feedback on user experiences and create a system of reporting problems like trash and traffic management. 2, collect user fees and maintain a public calendar for facilities use and special events, Little League, club teams, cleanups, rink time. Shall I just go through all of these, or you know what, I'll continue. C, inventory existing fields and courts facilities for access, use, and conformance with regulatory standards, equipment, treatments in watershed area. 1, the following locations are priorities for investment: Dick Wilson, Swinson, Stage Fort Park, Burnham's Field, Charlie Thomas Field, Magnolia Woods, Middleton Park, Beeman Basketball Court, O'Malley Fields, Track and Skate Park, Gloucester High School Fields. 2, the following sports are priorities for investment: baseball, softball, soccer, tennis, pickleball, basketball, skateboarding. D, maintain and conduct renovations of existing parks and playground facilities. The following locations are priorities for investment: East Gloucester Playground, Ben Smith Playground, Head of the Harbor Park. E, evaluate and improve existing public landing facilities to accommodate recreational aquatics and to create new water recreation access at Stage Fort Park. 1, replace dock and float systems at Cripple Cove, St. Peter's Park, the Annisquam Footbridge, and the city's 2 commercial marinas and Gloucester Harbor. 2, review and update as needed the land management agreements with the Division of Marine Fisheries for County Landing, the Dunfudgeon Boat Ramp, Long Wharf, Stone Pier, Corliss Landing, and Lanes Cove Landing. 3, identify and preserve public access rights of way to public landings, driftways, tidelands, and develop an online map for public use. And it looks like that must be a 4. The following activities are priorities for investment: community boating and sailing, kayaking, and fishing. F, enhance and protect Gloucester beaches for the changing diversity of users while prioritizing Gloucester residents' access. 1, the following locations are priorities for investment: Good Harbor Beach, Niles Beach, Cressy's Beach, Plum Cove Beach, and Wingersheek Beach. 2, the following user groups are priorities for investment: volleyball, surfing, dog walking, and bird watching. And I believe that is the end. Yeah. So this one has a lot, and it has really specific goals. And I think that a lot of this came right out of the survey, what people suggested, or what people are saying, what they want and what they need. So
Section D, with respect to some comments made earlier at East Gloucester,
yeah.
is the playground inclusive of the other field that was mentioned? You know, what used to be the rest of the ball field there? Or is that just the playground area?
Yeah, I don't believe it is. And if
Okay.
anybody else knows, they can jump in, but I don't believe that it is.
Okay. And again, where does Mados and the, well, at least the Green Street development fit into this? Is that on here?
It is not on here. I did not see anything about Green Street because it'll be transformed. I mean,
It's in process, but so is this document, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not on there. And I do know that the Green Street playground and redo is not set in stone, that there is opportunity for people to say what they want and what their priorities. And so, but yeah, it does say maintain and conduct renovations of existing park and playground facilities. So yeah, I don't know why it's not in here, or if this would be the right spot for it. It's going to be redone, and maybe that's why it doesn't need to be in the plan, or I don't know.
It would be under it's maintain and conduct. Well,
Yeah.
so renovations, so it looks like, is this category meant to talk about what to maintain or what to renovate? Right.
Well, if
That's unclear to me.
East Gloucester Playground will be different, I'm guessing, without the school around it, or I don't even know if the school is going away or what's happening to that building. So I don't really know the plans for that school. And I mean, maybe that's just not an exhaustive list. Maybe, well, or I don't know how those 3 places were picked. I don't.
So we'll have to follow up on that then, I guess. We'll take notes on that.
Yeah.
I would favor, having Green Street Playground in there even more than the Ben Smith Playground. So, I mean, maybe that could be added.
Yeah, I would agree. Add it, because yeah, I mean, I wonder why the Ben Smith Playground. I'm not sure why that needs, what that
They're
needs.
limited to space there anyway, so.
Yeah, I'm curious why that one is there and Green Street is not. So, okay, I'll make a note of that one too. Green Street versus. Okay. Other comments or questions? I feel like there's very specific recommendations here and goals. I don't know, I feel like there's a public calendar for facilities use and special events. I'm guessing that the rink already has that O'Malley has some sort of rink sign up. I don't know how that works. I'm not a hockey person, so I don't know how that works, but I'm guessing you can't just go show up there, that there's schools and I don't know, but it's a city facility.
If we could go back to D, I'm wondering if we can say maintain and conduct renovations of existing parks and facilities such as, and that doesn't leave any other areas out.
Yeah. Such as. Well, it seems like like there is very clear language that says the following locations are priorities for investments. And I believe that came out of the survey. Because if above it, where it says the following sports are priorities for investment.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably came out of the survey, I'm guessing, right? Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be all the parks and all the fields, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Or maybe there's a spot that I haven't seen or that I've overlooked where, priorities for investment were determined by the survey results and committee members. No, I don't know, I guess I would just want to know, well, wait, why is baseball, softball, and soccer priorities? Just because those are the things that we have, because you got pickleball on there. That's a new kid on the block, so to speak. And so it's why those, or where did those come from? And
Did Adrian draft these notes, and
Yeah.
perhaps she would have that insight?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure,
Okay.
this is Adrienne. And you are correct. All of this came out of the aggregate data of the survey. So, the committee is welcome to add or subtract as you see fit to this material. It's, it's not cut in stone at all. It's just a reference point for you to know, just as we were talking a couple of meetings ago about the data from the survey, there were some things that kind of popped up to the surface, like bocce ball and stuff like that. And as much as possible, I tried to capture that in the discussion in these objectives, so that we were kind of reflecting that there was feedback on those sports or facilities or locations or concerns in the plan and in the goals and objectives. But of course, if the committee says, we'd rather see a focus on X, Y, and Z rather than A, B, and C, then you're welcome either to both and or either or incorporate as you see fit.
Thank you.
Heidi?
Yeah, somebody else have a comment or question?
Further down in subsection F, regarding the beaches, adapting for the changing diversity of users while prioritizing Gloucester's residents' access. And Good Harbor, Niles, Cressy's, Plum. Okay. The second item below that is the following user groups are priorities for investment. And I understand we've been using that format and that statement in previous sections where we might be supporting the building of a dock or some kind of sporting facility. But I'm unsure of what form investment could possibly take for, say, dog walking, surfing, and bird watching. And it's not that I oppose it in any way, I just don't understand it. And so I was wondering if anybody knew or might suggest another way of phrasing this. And okay, so it seems like others are I think no one is responding, and that's okay. Maybe you're also scratching your head about this one. One thing I recall from the survey was there seemed to be an organized response from the surfers regarding parking, specifically at Good Harbor. And I don't know if this is a place for it, but I think the concern was that they arrive to surf in the morning before work and before the parking lot is open, and then they get ticketed there on was it Nautilus Way? Can we make a recommendation as specific as investigate some parking accommodation or tolerance for or a permit or something for surfers?
I think that comes up in another section. Okay. I believe I feel like I read that, and I do know that the Cape Ann Surfers Union has been working hard to change some rules about access, and I didn't even connect it as much with parking and ticketing as much as just access to the water on, say, inclement weather days. So I know they are a vocal local group that are stewards. They are stewards for sure. So maybe with the language, Dan, I was just giving a pause, like letting it be quiet for a moment, but I feel like what the language is, it's like the following activities need to be included. Maybe like the following activities should be included in beach regulations, or like, input, or I don't know if we want to say input, but the following groups should be considered and or included when creating, when, I don't know, if the goal is enhance and protect Gloucester beaches while prioritizing Gloucester residents' access. I guess what I see that saying is that there are the people that use Good Harbor Beach, volleyball, definitely surfers, definitely dog walkers, and, bird watching, piping plover people, or just people who are interested in birds. So maybe it's something like, the following activities, maybe that's what it is, like the following activities should be included when considering beach regulations or something
Can I
like that.
type in? I'm wondering if it says the following user groups are priorities for consideration in the beach management plan.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And beach management plan.
Because Good Harbor Beach, as well as any other barrier beach, needs a management plan.
Yeah. And again, if this is under stewardship, I feel like that's important to just remember that our citizens and our users can be stewards and are frequently stewards. So that's important to me. Great. Other activities, I mean, other feedback or input? Okay, moving on. We're doing great. All right, goal 4. Protect and improve gateways to and create strategic connections between open space and recreation areas. 1, promote cycling, walking, and other forms of self-propelled travel throughout the city by improving multimodal connections and wayfinding to provide safe travel. 1, identify and improve off and on-road connections and develop an online map of bike lanes, bike-safe streets, multi-use paths, off-street trails, and other cycling accommodations and services. 2, comply with the city's safe and accessible street policy. Collect and analyze information from the Gloucester Police Department regarding accidents involving cyclists and pedestrians, and develop/vet ideas for preventing them in the future. 3, complete the bike lane designation on Rogers Street. Improve the Scotts Street bike lane designation. Establish rights of way for safe access to Blackburn Industrial Park path at the top of Harrison Ave. 2, improve parking by identifying and enumerating suitable parking at entrances to popular open space and recreation areas. 1, develop a parking program for surfers using Good Harbor Beach before hours. 2, identify and improve safe parking access to Mount Ann and Red Rocks recreation areas. 3, improve ADA accessibility at all Gloucester open space and recreation areas. 1, conduct a comprehensive ADA self-evaluation and inventory and develop a plan to incorporate all accessibility upgrades needed when maintaining and improving recreation facilities. 2, work with the Council on Aging and other community groups to create and improve existing recreation facilities for passive leisure, especially those that are proximate to elderly residential areas. 4, identify green linkages in the city center and school zones. Expand and maintain a continuous harbor walk. Prioritize I-4C2 for redevelopment that includes public recreational use. Scroll down. Thank you. 2, use the database of named squares and memorials to develop an urban trail where arts and culture can be showcased during city celebrations. 3, develop and implement the Safe Routes to School program to encourage pedestrian and bicycle transportation to school. Prioritize the Riverdale neighborhood's access to the O'Malley schools and fields. And I think that might be it. Yeah, good. Or this is also kind of a full, very specific goals and objectives. So I'm curious what people have to say about this one.
Section 1.3 right there. Why was just the top of Harrison Ave selected and not? What I understood was an obligation, and maybe we can find out more about this, but I thought when Sam Park created Gloucester Crossing, that there was supposed to be some bike lane or pedestrian access, over to Blackburn Industrial Park, not down. So picture that we just put 200 apartment units in there. We have a YMCA, we have all this stuff, and we have a city's largest employer across the street,
Mhm.
and all these new facilities, and Happy Valleys and everything, and the people can't get across the street. They have to go all the way down through Green Street and all the way around, and then climb this giant hill up Harrison Ave, which at the end of it is just really a 3-foot single track path that pops out at, which, and it's really a very steep access point there. And there's sort of like there's a grade issue there, a giant transformer. It really would have to come up and sort of come to the left and be something like that. But again, why is a bigger piece missing, not included here? I just think something big needs to happen there. And I don't know how to solve it, but
Yeah.
it's a big one, and people at work, I work at Applied Materials. I've been there for, 33 years, and people don't have a way of getting across to Gloucester Crossing.
Yeah.
By footpath or bike.
Yeah, so Mark, I'm with you on this. This has been changed from the notes that I had sent Adrian some time ago, but I left it broader. I said establish rights of way for safe access to Blackburn Industrial Park. And so that could be Harrison, but it could be other means as well.
Right, that's what I agree.
I feel like we could, I wouldn't mind expanding this a little bit further, especially coming off of what Dan mentioned earlier about, recreation that isn't on the land that is designated as recreation. Because I feel like that's in our purview to encourage more bike lanes, which I think is something as the recreation committee we should be doing, is promoting more bike lanes. Across the board, I think. I specifically here, but I think specifically across the board in all of Gloucester as well.
And I sort of agree with everybody that it would be really nice to have some kind of connectivity between Halyard Apartments and Dogtown Common and the trails and stuff. So if we could create something, there that could create connectivity where you wouldn't have to go downhill in order to go uphill, would make sense.
Yeah.
What would it be? I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but like, how would?
Yeah, it's hard to solve it real time, right? That's why I was just
Yeah.
focus on the requirement, right? Like I think Dave mentioned, focus on the requirement of the language of safe, convenient access or something like that. Because we could come up with all kinds of ideas, right? Overhead walkways and all these kind of things, which are hard to do because they block, highway height restrictions. You're getting the highway departments involved and everything else. Like, it would involve some restructuring of that rotary, of Blackburn Circle in some fashion, which I don't know if that's sort of inevitable anyway, once all those apartment units are populated, once Gloucester Crossing's fully built out, everything, that it's inevitable that single lanes they are now and the way the beach traffic backs up, and maybe that's inevitable someday that something like that will happen. We just have to wait for that time to chime in.
Right. And
when some big one is happening.
Having it in the plan and keeping an eye on funding opportunities and stranger things have happened and come to pass, but it won't happen if we don't have it in the plan.
Right.
So could we sort of say explore?
Sure. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this conversation, and I like that it's expansive and it's acknowledging the growth of increased population and also more retail, like the connectivity of residents and also workers, employees, who may or may not live in Gloucester, but are certainly contributing to Gloucester by working at Applied Materials, who do want to go work out at the Y. So, to do something or whatever, like to increase connectivity safely. And I think to just say path at the top of Harrison is limiting, and I'm all for expansive. So I think we should be explicit and say recommend or explore connectivity between Blackburn Industrial Park and Sam Park Industrial. Like, is that
Gloucester Crossing?
Gloucester Crossing? Thank you.
Is that what is the whole thing called Gloucester Crossing, or just the retail part of it? I'm not.
No, it's all Gloucester Crossing.
Okay, so then let's just say Gloucester Crossing then.
Yeah.
Right, Explore, I think, opens it up.
Explore, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, okay. Okay. And I don't know where Scott Street is. Where's Scott Street bike lane designation?
Scott Street is next to the what it used to be the Hess station on Rogers. I forget what it's called now. There's a
Speedway or something now.
Yeah, Speedway.
Yeah.
And the bike lane is, there has been, there's a little bump out in the flow, and people park in what is the bike lane.
Yes.
So you have to, for the length of the 3 cars, kind of come out into traffic. And it's not a great inconvenience to do that, but the drivers on Rogers Street might not appreciate that you're coming out at that point. I think it's a danger spot. I wonder if we could, this bullet number 3, complete. All right, so I had an item when it was several meetings ago, and I made this suggestion about the bicycling. And one of the things that I put on there was conduct an annual forum for cyclists and pedestrians to gather ideas for improving safety, access, and accommodations. And the idea was that each year you'd look at the crash data, look at the the accidents with cars and pedestrians and cyclists, and talk to the police, talk to the DPW, talk to cyclists, and figure out what are the problems that we need to address in any year. Right now, the problems are Rogers Street, improve the bike lane at Scott Street, Nautilus Way, making a left turn from 127 onto 133, and so next year it's going to be something else. And so I would like to rephrase number 3, along the lines of several safety issues, for immediate consideration are this: 4, conduct an annual forum of cyclists and pedestrians to address safe access and that sort of thing. And I can provide language for that if you'd like.
I second that. I think that's a really concrete suggestion and doable. And it is really what we're asking for is codifying and saying this is a priority, and the people that do it are the experts. So let's get together, but also include voices of people that can change things and hear, like, oh, this is just what we do. Every February we go through this list of crash data, and we meet with the police chief, we meet with Joe Lucido or Mike Hale and or Mark Cole and which DPW, but I support putting that right in there.
And it's something that I would I would take on as a task, but I would like to see it in our plan.
Yeah.
And I could do it on behalf of the Open Space Committee if the committee thought that appropriate.
Would you host it at an Open Space Committee meeting? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think so. Or maybe it would be a special meeting. And have it at a place where we could have, you know, I once just sent out a bunch of messages and posted a few things, and I got about 15 people showing up at the friend room in the library to have that kind of discussion. And the director of Mass Bike came, and you know, he pitched things, and then we had a you know, kind of that conversation. What scares you out there? What could be improved? How, you know, and that. And so I think if we had the support of the city and kind of the communications vehicles of the city, we could get more people in, and particularly if this happens while we still have Jennifer Donnelly working on you know, on Mass in Motion and her connections to you know, the communities that you know, she's already established a lot of a working group, as well as community representatives who are, you know, concerned about pedestrians, and like, so I think she would be a great resource for that.
And she's a grant position, is that true?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But my point is, I think, so Liam, I think we could get, you know, I would hope to see maybe 25, 30 people show up. And if it's a good year, you say, boy, that was a good year. What we're doing is working. Can we do more? If it's a bad year, then you've got real focus. You know, we had a crash here, people got hurt, or, you know, and, you know, how do we avoid that in the future? And, you know, I'm a cyclist, I'm not a civil engineer. So I can say, I get scared at this point, and then I turn to a civil engineer or a traffic engineer or policeman and say, you know, is there anything we can do? Because this is a scary intersection. And that kind of forum, I think, would be really helpful for, and recurrent, so that it's a continuing conversation. Relationships are built over time.
Yeah.
So thank you for considering that. I can provide this language. I'll send it to the committee right now. This is what I sent to Adrian back in September. Had some of that language in there, and I'm not suggesting that we replace all of this with it. It's just that, you know, it's an easy way for me to forward what I did previously.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Certainly. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and it looks like we got that parking program, improve parking by identifying and enumerating suitable parking at entrances. I know this came up in the survey. A lot of people said that was an issue. Specifically, we've got surfers using Good Harbor Beach before hours, identify and improve safe parking access to Mount Ann and Red Rocks recreation area. I know that I think maybe it was just Noel, but we did some walks up at Mount Ann, and there were some issues with parking and access, and neighbors that were not so excited about people coming to park there on, what is it, New Way Lane? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, New Way Lane.
Yes.
But I do feel like, you know, to identify and improve is important, because some of these places, you know, Gloucester is such a big area that if you live in Lanesville and you want to go walk at Mount Ann, you could ride your bike, but you're probably not going to. And, you know, if you're going with your family, you're really not going to. So to have parking spaces is important for access, and, you know, so I also feel like improve ADA accessibility at all Gloucester open space and recreation areas. That seems like I'm surprised that the DPW isn't mentioned in this section here, or maybe that's worked together with, you know, and maybe that's a no-brainer. Like, we make the recommendations and then they implement it, or then it goes to, you know, somebody else who takes it to DPW. But it feels like when Steve Winslow did the complete streets, or when he did one of his presentations about redoing sidewalks. So it wasn't just about cycling and bike lanes, but it was also about making things pedestrian friendly, and not just for ADA compliance, but also strollers. Like, people have babies and toddlers and they, push strollers. So I feel like it is not merely ADA accessibility, but also, I don't know if maybe strollers don't go in there, but that's just, I'm thinking about how to include or name the DPW, like implement these recommendations or improve aid, like as partners or working together with the DPW. But yeah, Dan.
If I recall, I mean, yes, I think it could be appropriate to include that here. But if I recall, in the past plan, after all the recommendations, there's like a table that restates everything that's in the goals and the objectives, and then lists, responsible parties and timelines, maybe, or deadlines.
Okay. And that would be a place for that.
I think, but maybe Adrian could clue us in. She's looked at it more recently than I.
Dan, you are correct about that. Hopefully that will be the work of next week's scheduled meeting, which is, we'll have feedback on this document and enough, anyways, information for me to begin to produce a table around it wherein you're correct to identify responsible parties, possible funding sources, and timeline across the timeline of the plan.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you, Adrian. So we've got ADA accessibility, and then for 4, identify green linkages in the city center. Again, I know this came up earlier, but also we've got some specifics: Harbor Walk, I-4C2, this idea of an urban trail where arts and culture can be showcased during city celebrations. I love that idea, just that because there are some things and connectivities that I don't always think of, or people may or may not know. There was the Discover Gloucester scanning with the barcode, those little pedestals that have great information. And I know those don't include everything, but that's a great resource. And if people take advantage of them, or I don't know if they need updating or if there's other places. I know there are squares and memorials that are not on there, maybe, or some are, some aren't. And then, Safe Routes to School program is, I am all for that as well. So. Other comments or questions about 4 or any of these?
Add another C to access.
Oh yeah, add another C to access. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, under 4.3, the state DOT already has a Safe Routes to School program. And so it's not like Gloucester wouldn't have to develop it. It's just a matter of getting in the queue and getting the state DOT staff to come in, and they survey your community, survey the school, and work with the people in the administration of the school to and the kids to like test out pedestrian and bicycle routes from their homes.
Yeah.
If I could comment on that, I think this might have to do with the unofficial access by the DPW yard for off of Poplar Street into to the O'Malley School. It isn't really safe for people on Maplewood Avenue to pass through through that area, which is an unofficial access to O'Malley School, and going up Cherry Street is not safe for a lot of people to access O'Malley School as well. If that area beside the DPW yard were improved and actually became more safe, it would be a better access, for people that live, along Maplewood Avenue and Poplar Street to go to a Maley school.
Okay. No, I hear what you're saying, David. I think that's a great item to have in there. And I was just saying that the Safe Routes to School is the name of a program under the state DOT, and we can avail ourselves of it. And that is not a particular program that we have to develop. It we can draw on it already. But I'm not saying we should get rid of that Riverdale statement in there. I think that should stand or be rephrased. It's good to have that in.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I would say I love that idea of improving access through that DPW field or lot, because while I know it's being used, I do know that it's a challenging, not very user-friendly hill for young people, young folks to go up Cherry Street or down it. And also, it's just, it could be, I like that idea. So you're suggesting, or possibly, if you were to go further down Poplar, take a right, like avoid Cherry Street, but connect up to Osmond Babson Road,
right,
through somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's an unofficial pathway there that's highly vegetated,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of invasive species there.
Yeah.
And there have been some issues with people passing through that area.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anything else? I know there's some, I-4C2, I know that is a parking lot right now, and sometimes there's festivals there. So I know that is public recreational use. I don't know the status of the Harbor Walk right now. I'm guessing, again, these came up from the survey. And then, yeah, I don't know if there's something else about Burnham's Field or anything. Like, I'm just thinking about, city center and or, open space and recreation in the city center, if there's anything that needs to be specific. No. That was there, it says 4-3, but Liam, I think that's the last one, or is that? Yeah.
Yeah, shall we move on to goal 5?
That sounds great. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Goal 5, plan for and incorporate the concerns of climate change and resiliency in all policies and operations programs related to open space and recreation areas. A, develop and implement communication plans for priority parcel clusters to guide city staff and emergency management teams to respond to environmental and human disaster events. 1, establish a chain of communication among city departments for search and rescue and recovery events. B, develop and implement a forestry management plan to minimize the risk of forest fire in watershed lands and to identify the location of existing and proposed fire access roads.
A doesn't exist already?
Does not.
Wow.
I think
Yeah.
Maybe under B we could say something like encourage the development of a fire or is it fire warden, or there's like I think a lot of municipalities have like a forestry warden. There's like a specific position.
It's called a
for
tree
someone.
warden position.
Tree
Yeah.
warden. Okay, yeah. Because I feel like with the amount of forest we have, that would be a useful thing.
Yeah. There is more to this goal 5. It includes the floodplain management plan, update to the wetlands ordinance. In full disclosure, I did this this paper in 4 sittings, and just kind of eventually run out of steam in creating language and organizing from my notes and pulling information from the data. So there are just probably 2 more that need to go onto this that are specific to climate change resiliency policy work. One has to do with the watershed management plan and updating the watershed overlay district. And then the other is floodplain and wetlands. And so you will see additional language for that that we can talk more about, that comes from the bulleted list from before, and also is just generally slated to be done inside of various annex departments in the DPW. So it should be included in the plan. But otherwise, that is generally complete goal 5.
I really think that goal 5, as Adrian said, really needs to be fleshed out a lot more than what we're seeing right now.
What's an example of a priority parcel cluster? It says develop and implement communication plans for priority parcel clusters.
So just as we referenced that kind of phrase earlier for land management plan, talking specifically about Dogtown. So that's a parcel cluster group. It's not necessarily named there, but it is a place where there has been a history of communication issues for public safety and emergency matters. There are a couple other places in the city that could be identified. We haven't necessarily identified them here in the plan yet, but we certainly can if we want to talk about where we think communication is. But ultimately, you know, a standard operating procedure for communication really shouldn't necessarily speak to a particular parcel. It should be a communication plan. Right. So
Adrian?
the idea of using certain parcel clusters is so that we can identify like what the possibilities are in terms of response and who may need to be notified. But in terms of talking about communication, the point is to improve it all around across city departments and also outside the city.
Is this sub goal A, 5A, is it best placed here under climate change resiliency or under, I guess it was open space management? One of the earlier ones, because this communications seems relevant to the space of its own and not necessarily under climate change.
Right. So the reason why communications came up as, and you're absolutely right, when I had drafted notes for this, I had the communications plan came up multiple times in discussion with different department heads and in multiple different places. But ultimately, the big concern for communication that came through from the department heads had to do with aerial flooding issues in watershed lands where spillways may overflow, and forest fires, which are natural events, environmental events that are going to increase over time as a result of climate change. And so that's kind of why they live in the resiliency space. The search and rescue and sort of human concerns are around people getting lost, people camping, bad things happening to people in places where they're not easy to be evacuated. And that whole program of evacuation would be replicated from whatever the program of management and communication and evacuation would be in place for something like a flood or a fire. So, unfortunately for me, I was exhausted when I wrote this particular section. And so really what should come first is the discussion around the potential for natural disaster events. And secondly, how that may outline a way for the city to communicate if something is going on in these places where other city department heads or departments and their staff may need to know about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What I'm noticing here is this is more in response to natural disasters rather than planning for climate change. And I'm wondering if when this is fleshed out, perhaps more of planning for climate change could be incorporated into this goal 5.
I think that's great feedback, and it is true also that, again, there's more to add to this. So I'm also interested in whatever your ideas are too, for what that might mean in terms of resiliency planning.
I think, would this be a place for hire a sustainability director, or is that not the, I know that term has been suggested by some citizens and people here in the audience tonight. And so I'm wondering if this would be another place to recommend sustainability director. So.
And I'm also wondering if we might want to do outreach to Cape Ann Climate, Change.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that would be, when we're going to public comment, we can add them to our list of people. And hopefully, when we get to that place, we will be reaching out directly to a point of contact there and saying, we really think this portion may be of interest to you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think that that's the beauty of this work, doing it in public so people can see and listen to what is being said and what is being presented, and then know that this is not written in stone. This is a living document. We're getting feedback, and there will be a time for people to read through 7 pages and say, hey, I think this is a good spot for this. And I think that it is exciting, and I really appreciate the work that you did. And I hear you say that it's not, this goal here needs some fleshing out. So we'll be able to look at that next week. So I appreciate that, Adrian. Thank you.
Sure.
Other folks have any comments about this, or things that they want to, when we look at this again next week, see in there? Or
I had an exchange with Noel a while back about climate resiliency, and she's very wise. Like first order climate resiliency has to do with the kinds of things we're talking about here, and protecting low-lying areas. Sort of second order is the displacement of low-lying infrastructure and housing that will occur to accommodate sea level rise and greater storm surge. So she has expressed to me concerns about the enhanced protections that we talked about for the Dogtown plot clusters, as a way of precluding development in that area when people start moving off of the, whether it's the city moving low-lying infrastructure up into our uplands, or trying to build homes up there after, low-lying properties become less inhabitable. So I think her concern would be addressed by I think it was in number 2, where we talked about putting conservation easements and on properties that currently don't have them. But I just wanted to run that idea by you all on her behalf, since she's not here today, and see if you had thoughts on it and how that might be addressed, or whether it needs to be addressed under Goal 5.
I'm going to echo your sentiment, Dan, about, and Mark, about the connectivity between Blackburn and Gloucester Crossing, that it's sort of like knowing that knowing the potential for impact, and or it's not now, but in the future. And this is a 10-year plan, 7-year plan, or 10-year plan. Okay. Is 7 years, just 7? Okay, I don't know what Gloucester will look like in 7 years, but it could look very different. And so to have something in, by 2022, And just let's say by 2030, what does that, to have something in here that says, this is what we said was a priority about protecting land. I think that's a good idea to include that awareness, because that's a predictable result of climate change. That, you know, there's the acute of flooding and fire, and then there's the longer term of, oh, well, now you've got these people or these businesses that need to relocate because of that. And where are we going to put them? Let's not sacrifice our protected, precious open space land in order to do that. But where did we, like, what was the foresight? And we can put that in. So I support that in goal 5. Okay, any other comments or questions? Because it is 8 o'clock and I deeply appreciate people's attention and contributions. And we will come back together, but I just want to give other committee members a chance to share or comment.
Thank you. This was helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you, Adrian, again, for the fine work that you have done on this, putting it together for us to add to and discuss and look at it in really clear language. So I appreciate that. And I'm looking at my agenda here, and it looks like our next meeting is scheduled for, or we are hoping for, December 8th. Is that correct? I've got December 8th, open space. Is that correct? Adrian?
Yeah, that's what Adrian said earlier.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yes, I have everybody on for December 8th, and hopefully if I can send you all off tonight with the ask for you to redline this document. Take a look at Courtney's, highlight what you think could be incorporated over into this document. I'll make those changes. Like if you could do it by close of business Friday, I'll try to make those changes on Monday. And then next week we will be looking at the table, which is going to be the same action items in general, but with the discussion around who the appropriate, what's the word? Dan, you know it. And now I've lost it. It's getting too late for me.
The responsible parties, the doers.
Responsible parties, thank you. The responsible parties, funding sources, and timeline. So responsible parties and funding sources really shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that fluid, but the timeline, I really do want to make sure that the Open Space Committee is thinking carefully about, because you obviously can't instruct the city to do everything in year 1. So that will probably be the bigger discussion next week.
Okay. Great. So we'll be looking for something from you. Should we just look in the Google Drive, or will you send a note that says there's something new, or when you or just take a look at this? I know exactly the answer. Sorry. We have the documents, add to them, edit them, and then get any changes back to you by Friday, end of day. Is that?
Yeah, if you get them to me Friday end of day, then hopefully maybe Monday end of day, I'll have something to circulate back to you. But it may be very much similar to today, where it's like, here you go, guys. See it on the screen later. We'll walk through it.
Terrific. Okay. Well, do we need a motion to adjourn our meeting, or I don't know?
So adjourned.
So moved. All right. Member Morris, second. So can I have a roll call to adjourn our meeting? And I'm just going across on the screen. Dan Morris.
Yes.
Dave Sargent.
Yes.
Mark Poulin.
Yes.
Liam Anastasia Murphy.
Yes.
And Heidi Wakeman also says yes. So the meeting is adjourned, and I thank you again for your patience and understanding and your attention to these important issues. So see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Heidi.
Okay.
Thanks, Adrian.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.